Alright, so today we will be solving systems of equations using elimination. Once again, we have done elimination. We're going to be reviewing two variable to three variable elimination. So to get started, let's just kind of review when we have two equations with two unknowns. We want to get rid of one of the variables, and we can do that by multiplying one or both equations by a number, or just by adding and subtracting. So here, we're just going to add up these two equations because the x's cancel out. And then we have 3y minus 2y, so we have positive y, negative 1 plus 2 is 1. And so once we solve for the first variable, we substitute it into any of the equations. So I'll just substitute it into the bottom one, x minus 2 times 1 is 2. So we plugged it into the second equation, x minus 2 equals 2. So x equals 4. So my answer would be 4, 1. All right, the next one a little bit more difficult. We have 4x plus 3y equals negative 2 and x plus 5y equals negative 9. Now if we add it up, it wouldn't just immediately get rid of one of the variables. So we're going to have to multiply one of the equations. So I'm looking at the x's. I have 4x on top, and I want to get rid of the x's on the bottom to match up. So that means I need to multiply the bottom by negative 4. So that gives me negative 4x minus 20y equals 36. So if you notice, I multiplied it by everything in the equation, and now I can add them up. So the x's cancel out. 3y plus negative 20y means I have negative 17y. Negative 2 plus 36 is 34. And so when I divide that out, I end up with y is equal to negative 2. I can plug that in. I'll plug it into the second equation. 5 times negative 2 equals negative 9. X minus 10 is negative 9. So x is equal to 1. So my ordered pair answer is 1, comma, negative 2. Now let's get to the harder stuff. All right, so we have our back page of our notes, and now we're solving systems with three variables using elimination. And so the first thing I always want to say to everyone is don't just add all three together. Don't add all three equations together. It might work once in a while where you can get rid of two of the variables, but most often it won't. And so we want to actually go through kind of our steps. And so in this, we're going to have to perform two separate eliminations. Two separate eliminations. Sorry about my handwriting on this thing. Two separate eliminations to be able to both get rid of the same variable. So if you got rid of x in your first set, you must do the same thing in the second. And with these, you need to use two of the equations. So I'm going to use x plus 2y minus z equals negative 3, and 2x plus y plus z equals 3. It doesn't really matter, but you need to make sure within your two separate eliminations, so my second one is going to be set up, I'm just going to use the second two, but you can use any order of them. But you need to make sure that all three get used at least one time. If you don't use them all at least one time, you're not going to get your answer. So those are our two sets. So for this first one, you can look and see the easiest thing to get rid of is these z's, because they add up to nothing. So when I do this, I get 3x plus 3y is equal to 0. So because I got rid of the z's in my first set of elimination, I need to do the same thing in my second set. So looking at my z values, I see I have 1 and 1. So I need to make one of them a -1. I'm going to multiply the bottom by -1 because I notice that my answer is equal to -11. I just like having positive numbers. I could have multiplied the top by -1 if I wanted to. So when I multiply that, I get 4x minus 2y minus z equals positive 11. And so now I'm going to add it up with the top line. 2x plus 4x is 6x. Y minus 2y is minus y. The z's cancel and that equals 14. So now I have set up I have two variables and two equations. So I'm going to transfer my second equation over. And so this is why we had to make sure they have the same variables, because now I have x's and y's. And so there's a couple different ways I can try to get rid of an x or a y. If I want to get rid of the x's, I would multiply the top by -2, because that would give me -6x minus 6y equals 0. And I could add these up. So the x's would go away. I would have -7y equal to 14. And so y equals -2. All right. Once I get y equal to -2, I'm going to plug it in over here. And so I would have 6x minus a -2 equals 14. So when we subtract a -2, that's adding. And so then I would have to subtract it from the other side. So I'd have 6x equals 12, or x equals +2. And so once I get both, then I can plug it into any of the equations that we originally had up here. So I'll just plug it into the first one. So I have x, so that's 2, plus 2 times y, minus z equals -3. So 2 minus 4 minus z equals -3. And if I work that out, I get -z equals -1 and z equals +1. So my final, when I write out my solution, 2, -2, 1. All right, so I had to do elimination 3 separate times in order to get my answer. All right, let's look at my last example. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to set up 2 sets of equations. I'm going to use the first 2 equations, and then I'm just going to use the last 2. Like I said before, you can go in whatever order you want. I'm just going to go in this order just because. And we'll see how it goes. All right, so for the first 2, if you look, you can see we can get rid of x super easy. You just add them up, straight up and down. So we have y plus 4z equals 6. And now let's look at the other side. Same thing, the x's we can get rid of very easily. So we have 6y plus 3z is equal to 15. So I'm going to take this over and do my third set of eliminations. And so now I see I have a y and a 6y, a 4z, and a 3z. So I could multiply the top by -3 and the bottom by 4 if I wanted, or I could just multiply the top by -6 to get rid of y. That's what I'm going to do here. So that's -6y minus 24z equals -36. And so I'm going to add that up. The y's go away. I get -21z equals -21. So my z value is 1. Once I do that, I plug it back in. 6y plus 3 times 1 is 15. So that means 6y is equal to 12. So y is 2. And then, like I said before, we plug it back into any of the equations. So let's just plug it back into the bottom equation. X plus 3y plus 2z. And so you can see I'm replacing my y's and z's with our answers. So it's x plus 6 plus 2 equals 10. So we can work it all out, and we would end up with x equal to 2. So our solution is 2, 2, 1. And that is solving systems of equations with 3 variables using elimination.